All right, followers, I just want to let you in on a great website if you're a fan of Michigan, UofMDiehards.com. They got great blogs, they got great articles dedicated to all things University of Michigan. They reach out to get great interviews from writers at the Bleacher Report. They break down a lot of the games across all sports. Check out UofMDiehards.com. It's a great website, and DocNJock, check them out. You see them on our Twitter page all the time. They're objective. They look at things from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different angles. It's a great website. It's a good follow. So you can follow them on Facebook. Give their Facebook page a like at UofMDiehards. I find myself going there quite a bit.
I'm Go Blue, baby.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
All day, every day.
Good morning, my neighbors!
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
It's that time of the week. It's Thursday, so you know it. This is the Detroit Sports Podcast, episode number 70. We're at episode 70 because I am the Doc, John Macaroon.
You're the future of our business.
Joining me is my co-host, Adam, the Jock Strozinski.
Making magic on the mics. DocNJock, much to everyone's delight.
What's up, cuz? What's happening?
What's up, cuz?
It's all good, man. I'm ready to kick this bad boy off. Talking Detroit sports, bringing the noise, trying to keep this as professional as possible for the listening audience. But you know what? We do have an obligation to let people know that this is for mature audiences, not suitable for kids under the age of, let's say, 14.
We come with an NC-17 rating all day.
Because this is a podcast, and from time to time, the language will be foul, we get passionate, and sometimes we make jokes that may not be suitable for the young generation. So as role models, we do have the obligation to say, don't turn this shit on if you're under the age of 13. Just go to another podcast. It's okay. In a couple years, you'll be able to listen to this foul mouth podcast.
This is like a Disney or Pixar show. It's thinly veiled adult humor for only mature audiences.
That's right. And parents out there, don't let your kids listen to this because they may learn some things that you don't want them to learn. Oh, cuz the Lions had a great weekend. There's a lot to talk about on this podcast. Lots of interesting things going on in the sports world. A lot of things happening off the field. The Lions' Reggie Bush made a statement with the shirt that he wore, and we're going to talk about that in terms of what should we think about athletes who are wanting to comment on social issues that are going on in the country. We're going to talk about the Lions, what we saw versus Tampa Bay, and now, as we get down to the final three games, some things are taking shape, and we're going to get a chance to break down how this team could look in a potential playoff matchup versus a couple different teams. And in the second half of the show, we're hoping to connect with Justin Rose from WXYZ Channel 7 and the Channel 7 Sports Cave, which airs every Sunday at 10:30. He's got a lot of knowledge regarding college football, and we're going to get a chance to break down what happened this last Saturday with the college football playoff, the four teams that got in, and Michigan State getting a tough matchup, in my opinion, getting an angry Baylor team who was left out. Cuz we got a lot to get to. You ready to kick this bad boy off?
Let's do it, bro.
Great game versus Tampa Bay. A lot of people said, listen, all the Lions got to do, suit up, handle your business, don't make too many mistakes, and you should be able to walk away with a victory. And that's what they did. The offense was efficient, the defense was smooth, and in all, Tampa Bay is a team that the Lions should have handled, and that's what they did. If you listened to last Thursday's podcast, the doc did call the correct score as to what Tampa Bay would do. I called it 31-17 for the Lions, and we finished with a 34-17 victory. I guess one of the minor issues that came out from the game, lots of penalties. I think it was 9 penalties for 122 yards. And a lot of people are saying, okay, this team, if they're going to take that next step, has to really work on limiting these penalties and not making those mistakes. But right now, cuz, if you really look at this defense, in terms of the fact that they're not giving up really much at all in the opponent's running game, they are doing some things, and talking about top 5 in history. They're giving up less than 75 yards a game to the opponent's running back. That is all-time type stuff. The defense right now is playing really well. James Ahedebo, great interception. I think he's going to want to take back the fact that he caught the interception and then ran out of the end zone and cost the Lions the ball when he fumbled it. But he comes out and says that, hey, our safety group could be the top 2 in the NFL right now. And with Ahedebo and with Glover Quinn, they're getting interceptions galore. Lots of turnovers. They're playing well. The offense was steady. The Lions played a great game and they handled their business. That's all you can ask for, especially when you knew they had some issues last season with Tampa Bay in a surprising loss last year. They avenged that loss. They played a great game, and the Lions are looking now to wrap up their home portion of the schedule versus Minnesota. Great game all in all, 31-17. Handled their business, got to 9 wins. Good job. We got a lot to get to. It's great. It's great to talk about the Lions with 9 wins.
I totally thought the Lions would win that game. I didn't think that Tampa Bay was as bad as Tampa Bay is. They were given over 122 yards just free. Here you go. Detroit kept them in that game as much as they were in that game. Every time that they would sit there and basically be stopped on a 3rd down or held to what would have been a 4th down or just a long yardage situation, Detroit sat there and took a stupid penalty. You had Ndamukong Suh forearming McGowan right in the face. And they ended up picking up 15 yards there on a personal foul. You turned around, Darius Slay was mugging guys as they were running down the field, just picking up large chunk plays on pass interference calls. I mean, the Lions kept this Tampa Bay team around and in the game for much of 3 quarters. But like you said, that Detroit defense is nasty. They play hard. They play fierce. They sock you in the face, and they call your mother all kinds of dirty names. I love watching this Detroit Lions defense. I think it's great. Like you said, all-time stuff. It's incredible to watch the turnaround from last season to this season. Last season, this defense at times was porous. They looked discombobulated. They just kind of looked all kinds of out of sort. Now this defense is the reason why this team is in games, why this team is putting up large numbers. And James Ahedebo might be right. This might be the best dynamic duo of safeties in the league. I mean, they've got 9, I believe it's 9 interceptions between the two of them. One's got 4, one's got 5. That's incredible stuff. That's really good. I know Cam Chancellor's coming back, and Seattle looks like they might be bending the corner here and kind of taking on the NFC West there. But what the safety duo is doing here in Detroit, I think it speaks volumes. I think they do a great job. You've got the front 4, and then you've got those back 2 guys, and that's kind of what helps push this defense forward and helps them take those next big steps. I think we all expected Detroit to beat Tampa Bay. I don't think we expected them to roll Tampa Bay the way they roll Tampa Bay. And that game probably should have been a lot less close than the double-digit pounding that Detroit gave Tampa Bay.
You know what? One pass interference play definitely comes to mind, and that Slay tweeted about it, that he was still angry about it. The one where Mike Evans went out and basically shoved Slay to the ground, what should not have been a pass interference. Basically, Mike Evans has a reputation now that he pushes off quite a bit in games, and then he talks trash behind it, waving his arms for the flag. That one play where Evans went deep to the sideline and Slay went down should not have been called, and Slay was right. He was so upset, so angry, because where was the pass interference on that play? I think that Slay had every right to be upset because that play should not have been called. And Jim Caldwell had mentioned it, that some of the penalties that were called may have been due to the referees kind of sticking their nose where they shouldn't have been. A lot of times right now, the refs are stepping in a little bit too much. What is great and what should be talked about is the Lions right now have the talent to overcome some mistakes. Not a lot. I don't think in a playoff game, if you give your opponent 122 yards in penalties, that you're going to have enough to overcome that. The Lions have to play clean games in order to win, and that's what I think they're going to strive to do in the next 3 games. And the defense is playing outstanding. They're keeping this team, keeping the Lions in games. but the offense right now is clicking at the right time. Matthew Stafford went, I think, 26 of 34 for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns. Reconnecting with Calvin Johnson they're getting back in rhythm. Calvin Johnson, who missed a couple games with injury, seems like he's healthy and he's doing the right things and is putting up stats at the right time. And it's very important that they continue this, because a lot of us are saying, okay, Stafford and Johnson can clearly, at this point in time in their career, they can dominate versus lesser opponents. They're starting to show that. The part that is challenging is, can they maintain this level of consistency, put up big numbers versus better opponents? You needed to show this kind of stuff, this kind of performance versus New England. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take the Lions going up and above their current state of play in order to beat a Green Bay, because Green Bay is rolling. They may not lose out the rest of the season. They're playing great. And so the question and the thoughts are, can the Lions take that next step versus teams that are quality teams and do what they got to do and perform? They should beat Minnesota, but they're coming on strong at 6-7. They may not lay down. Teddy Bridgewater has gotten the team to play better, and Coach Zimmer I don't think he's underrated, but I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves for being a great coach. Mike Zimmer out there in Minnesota has a strong reputation coming from Cincinnati as a defensive coordinator. He's coming in and instilled a good defense over there in Minnesota. So I don't think Minnesota's going to come into Detroit and lay down, but I think Detroit has enough to win that game and has enough motivation. But I think that right now the offense has to maintain this consistency. They have to continue to develop this run game. And we really should talk about the fact that Reggie Bush got in there and he looked nowhere near what Theo Riddick looks in there. Coach Caldwell's questioned about it. They're like, okay, why did you put in Reggie Bush? Obviously, when he got the ball, he was tackled within a yard or two, didn't really produce all that much. Jim Caldwell said, hey, Theo Riddick does what Reggie Bush does. In that case, it's a numbers game and we're going to go with Bush. I don't know if that's the best plan, and I don't know if they're going to continue that thought going forward when all stats point to the fact that Theo Riddick is a more efficient running back at this point in time.
I want to throw a yellow flag on Jim Caldwell for that comment.
Flag.
Theo Riddick looks more explosive, looks more dynamic, looks like he's more prepared and more equipped to handle where this offense is at right now in this state. Reggie Bush looks like he's somewhere back right around week 3. He's got some catching up to do. Reggie Bush didn't even look like he was a factor out there on Sunday. Reggie Bush looks hampered still with an injury, looks like he's still trying to figure out where his explosiveness is, and looks like he's trying to catch back up to get into what would now be week 13, week 14 game shape. He doesn't look like he's even mentally in the game. He looks like he's afraid to get tackled, looks like he's afraid to get hit. I'd like to see Theo Riddick out there a lot more than Reggie Bush right now. When Reggie Bush comes back 100%, do you think he's 100%? I sure as hell don't. He doesn't even look like he's up to pace and up to speed with the rest of this offense. So until Reggie Bush comes back and looks like he's fully ready to go, I don't want to see Reggie Bush on the field.
Exactly. I don't think Reggie Bush gives this Lions team the best chance to win. And in the playoffs, you have to look at it. You're going to have to run the ball at some point effectively in a playoff game, especially if the scenario happens where the Lions have to go on the road, maybe to Philadelphia or maybe to Dallas or maybe to New Orleans, should that be the case.
Or Atlanta.
I
mean, those divisions are still kind of up for grabs.
In order for the Lions to potentially have a bye in the first week of the playoffs and to host a home game is to win out.
I mean, I'm going to take it one step further. If they have any hope of beating Green Bay at Lambeau Field, they're going to have to be able to run the ball. If they get a lead, that's the only way. They got to basically keep away from Aaron Rodgers. That defense, you can put points up on that defense. Let's call it for what it is. That defense isn't anything special. What they do is they make timely plays, they make timely interceptions and force timely fumbles, and they recover the ball. But that defense is nothing special over there in Green Bay. What is special is that quarterback and the way he moves the ball around and the way he can basically score at will whenever he wants, and he has a complete and utter control of that offense. He can put the ball wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and he can do it however he wants to do it.
Yeah.
That being said, you got to be able to run the ball on those guys. You got to keep the ball away from them. It becomes a possession game with those guys. You got to possess the ball. You're going to have to chew up the clock. You're going to have to be able to sit there and track down the field, picking up 4, 5, 6, maybe even 15 yards at a time, because you got to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. And that's the only way you'll be able to win in Lambeau.
And so then it leads to this. there's whispers, there's rumors that this is likely that Reggie Bush will not be on this roster going forward. So next season, it is likely that if they don't put a lot of resources into the running backs because they have Theo Riddick, Joique Bell, and potentially Wynn as their options, do you think Joique Bell has solidified himself, has earned the right to be called the number one, and should be the feature guy in order to prevent the Lions from looking at running backs in the draft? Or do you think there's room for improvement and maybe potentially moving Riddick or addressing the running backs this offseason? Has Joique Bell done enough? Because he played great versus Tampa Bay. He does have the ability to make plays. He does fall forward for several yards. I don't know if he's a feature back, a guy that can get you 25 carries and 100 yards consistently.
I think on this offense right now, he is your number one back. The guy does everything well enough. He does a good job. He's an every down back. He does a good job blocking. He does a good job catching the ball out of the backfield. He does a good job running between the tackles. He doesn't have a ton of speed, but if he gets an edge, he'll sit there and he'll pick you up 10 or 12 yards at just a pick. You know what I'm saying? Just at a grip, he'll pick those up for you. I'm not opposed to not seeing Reggie Bush. This is something that we've talked about before. He gets injured. He becomes injury prone. He doesn't get on the field enough. And yes, his speed is nice, but he doesn't run between the tackles well. He has a problem with the fumbles, and he sometimes just kind of becomes a hamstring to that offense because you either can't count on him or he's turning the ball over. That being said, going into next season, I think you always look to upgrade talent, no matter what it is. If that means you got to push either a Theo Riddick out, you got to push a Joique Bell out, you got to push a Wynn out, you got to push a Reggie Bush out, whoever you got to push out, you got to push out. If there's a guy who is better and will make your team better, you look to bring them in, whether that is drafting, in the first or second pick, or you sit there and you can pick up somebody somewhere in the middle rounds. What I'd like to see is for these Detroit Lions to solidify what they're doing with their middle round picks. Those picks have to get stronger, and you're seeing a little bit of it this year with some of their picks on defense. You've got a Tahir Whitehead who looks good, and you got guys on the offensive side of the ball who are contributing, especially on that offensive line, but you need to see more strong play out of those middle round picks. That's got to get better. Once that gets better, I think you now have a lethal football team.
Okay, so now we've witnessed 2 games where Stafford and Calvin Johnson have connected. They're playing well, but this has been shown versus 2 lesser opponents. Do you think going forward versus Minnesota, Chicago, and Green Bay that this combination of Stafford and Johnson can keep this going, or do you see this leveling off? Because these guys playing like this are playing at an unstoppable level. If they can continue if Calvin Johnson can continue to get open, can continue to make key plays, then the Lions offense will achieve what we thought they would earlier in the season in terms of dropping 35 easily and winning games. But should there be a fall off, can this team continue to win? Because right now, I think they're still working on finding that balance of using Calvin Johnson and using Tate. Because Golden Tate, you get him the ball on that simple screen play, boom, he gets you 6 to 8 yards consistently. And so it'll be interesting to see. I kind of want to see what happens going forward. I wonder if Minnesota is going to double Calvin Johnson, what the Bears are going to do. I wonder what's going to happen going forward, knowing that if you stop Calvin Johnson, there is a chance you stop this offense.
Boy, has Golden Tate's just production kind of weaned and basically fell off a cliff since Calvin's come back. But I think you're right. As long as Calvin Johnson is healthy, I think the potential for this offense is through the roof. They do have to somehow get Golden Tate more involved, though. He needs to see more touches. He's got to be put in better positions to make more catches. I think what they're going to do with Calvin Johnson this Sunday is they're going to try to bracket him. They're going to try to surround him. They're going to have one guy up in front, basically playing press coverage. They're going to have somebody basically floating over the top of him, mirroring him, trying to sit there and make sure he doesn't break anything longer, get behind that defense. That being said, the guy's a genetic freak. He's tall, he's long, he's not as quick as he once was, but he's got enough speed and he's got enough athleticism to where he can sit there and he can outmatch a double coverage, especially if he is taller than what he's going up against. That being said, Golden Tate's got to get the ball. You got to get him involved early. You got to sit there, throw him a bubble screen. Let that guy go out there and just run after the catch. That's what he's there for. That's what he does. Put him in the slot, hit him on some quick slants, 3-step drops, and just get the ball out and get it to Golden Tate and let him do the rest of the dirty work. He's got to get the ball. He's got to get more involved. But you're right. Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford, as long as these two are synced together, the sky's the limit for this offense.
Okay, and so just a quick thought about the running game. I think that, and most people are very aware that the Lions want to pass the ball quite a bit, and so their philosophy is to set up the run by establishing the passing game. Now, it's been quite effective for a lot of teams who are successful on offense. The Denver Broncos, Green Bay, lots of teams pass the ball to set up the run. But at the same time, if that's taken away, then there's the challenge in that if the Lions are not successful at setting up the pass, if teams are able to take away Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson, then what? That's where, you needed those tight ends. And Fourier, of course, does his dance. We're all happy. We're all laughing on Twitter. Now he's in an ankle boot, and he's not going to be playing this Sunday. And the Lions have signed Kellen Davis to replace him. So Joseph Fourier is struggling with injury problems. Ebron is slowly but surely coming along, making a little bit more plays, but the tight ends are not really as effective as we thought they would be in this offense. So basically, you have a one-trick pony in that you got Matthew Stafford passing it to Calvin Johnson, gaining a lot of yards, which in turn allows for some more screen plays to Joique Bell, to Theo Riddick, to Reggie Bush. But going forward, I don't know, and I'm thinking long-term, I don't know if I like the pass-first strategy. I like the fact that the Lions have a strong passing game. I like that. But I'd like to, if possible, get a feature back along the lines with who has some talent, who has the ability to move the chains. So in my opinion, I don't think Joique Bell is a solid feature back. He's a strong 1B. He's a solid complementary running back. But I don't think you're going to have long-term success and the ultimate success of winning playoff games with Joique Bell. And it's not a knock on him. I'm just saying that I think that in order for the Lions now, if we're starting to shift our expectations a little bit from just getting into the playoffs to maybe winning some rounds, the offense has to consider upgrading and working on the running game and installing plays that can get yards, especially if teams are taking away your two best receivers.
So if there is a Eddie Lacy, Le'Veon Bell type running back out there come draft time next year, do you sit there and I think it's safe to say at this point the Lions will be drafting somewhere in the later half of the draft. Do you move up to go get that back to help solidify that offense?
Yeah, I think that's I really do think that.
I like we're talking trade talk, or we're talking draft talk right now. What's going on?
No,
we got a playoff game that's on the horizon.
I just think that right now it's a great time to be a Lions fan. I think we're starting to shift our expectations in terms of not just being a 9, 10, 11 win team.
We're nitpicking what we need now.
We need to, exactly. This is what we need to be doing in order to get to the next step, which is, I think for a lot of fans, a lot of people are just thrilled right now that they've got 9 wins. But for us who've been watching for so long, and for a lot of fans, we're looking at what does this team need to consistently win in the playoffs and to get to a Super Bowl. And in order to do that, you need to have really a lot of facets working effectively at the same time. The passing game, the running game, the offensive line, the defensive line, and especially in this league, you got to have strong special teams play. And the Lions are checking off a lot of those boxes, but a couple of them that you can't check off might hinder them significantly in terms of the running game and consistent offensive line play, because Stafford's still getting bumped around a little bit, and there are some plays that could be big plays that don't develop because he's rushed or is hurried.
You know what I've been a little bit let down with this season? So you kind of touched on it there. The special teams play. Where is the long punt return? Where is the long return in general? Where is that? We've not seen it this year. Last year, it was a nice compliment to the offense and kind of helped alleviate a little bit of pressure on that defense, because you knew once you had Jeremy Ross back there, he might be able to return one for you, but you've just not seen it this year. He's had some good runs, but you've just not seen it.
Oh, right. We get to geek out on punting and special teams. No, here's how we geek out. This is what you do. And that there's a couple different strategies in terms of what punters and what special teams coordinators want to do. If you want to limit a guy in terms of limiting his returns, what you do is the punter will kick the ball much higher and sacrifice distance in order to let the coverage get to the guy faster. And that's what's happening. Obviously, Ross is a threat. And last year, he took the ball to the house several times. So if you notice, if you pay attention, watch what the punters do when they give the ball back to Detroit. You're not going to see guys get a ton of yards, because what they're doing is they're punting the ball so high up in the air, sacrificing distance, and you'll see Ross fair catch it more, and so that's why Ross is not effective. So it's a smart strategy. Ross is a strong special teams guy, and he's making some waves in the offense, having some plays called for him earlier in the season, but that's just really why he's not doing as well as he should be. Geeking out, right?
Geeking out. I like Sam Martin, too. He looked good the other day. I like where these Lions are headed. I think that they sit there and they continue to roll this week. I think they beat Minnesota. I think they go into Chicago and they win that game as well, which makes everything super.
Because we are jumping a little bit ahead.
I know.
That how devastating. We talked about it last week, but the more we talk about it, the loss to Green Bay could potentially put us out of the playoffs. I mean, literally, the Lions could go 11-5, win versus Minnesota, win versus Chicago on the road. 11-5 may not get you into the playoffs. The teams in the NFC are just winning, and they're playing strong. And so we could be looking at a New England Patriots type scenario. When Tom Brady went out, Matt Castle led the team to 11-5 record. They did not make the playoffs. Is that what could be the destiny for our Lions? The heartache of an 11-5 season, but a late loss to Green Bay on the road in prime time to kick us out of the playoffs. Oh, would that be killer? Green Bay has to lose a game. Gosh, man, Green Bay has to lose to help us out. And it sucks to say that, hey, we may need to back into the playoffs, but I'll take it. Any way you can, get in. I don't know how confident I can be that they're going to win 3 games in a row to end the season. I just can't be that confident. I have to pencil in that Green Bay game as a loss.
Well, I think you go into it, you pencil it in as a loss because that's what we've been trained to expect as Lions fans. You never win in Lambeau Field. But I think that we maybe hinge some of our hopes on that Jim Schwartz defense over there in Buffalo, and we hope maybe Buffalo can do some of our heavy lifting this week. And that kind of puts a whole new spin on what's going on with that Detroit-Green Bay situation. And you're right, there's a possibility that 11-5, they don't get in. But I think that only happens if there's a tie between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. I think that Detroit will be just fine. That game against Green Bay, even if they lose, I still think they get in. Whether they back in or not, I still think if they lose, they still get in. The more and more this kind of heats up as we inch closer to that Week 17 matchup, I think if this offense can keep rolling and this offense kind of figures out where it needs to be, I think we have a shot. And I don't want to put too many eggs in one basket. And I kind of want to save some of this talk for Week 17 because then we can really geek out with it. But I think they got a shot. And that's all I'm going to say. I think they got a shot.
Got a shot. And if you would have said the Lions would have had 9 wins at this point in the season, we would say, all day, baby, we'll take it. So let's do this. Let's continue the winning ways. Let's play well versus Minnesota, and let's see where this takes us. I mean, this is good. This is where we want to be at, and this is so refreshing every week to say, okay, Jim Caldwell has taken this team, has taken the pieces that he's gotten, and has done wonders to get this team to play where it's at, and just keep improving. That's the mantra. Keep getting better, play better every week, and let's reach our peak when the playoffs hit, when we get there.
The bar is high. Hell, it's even higher. It's even higher.
All right, cuz stay with us. After the break, we're going to play a round of The Doctor is in Session. Jock has some questions that he needs answered, and I'm ready to deliver. Stay with us.
This is the Detroit Pistons dancing usher. My name is Shannon. And when I'm not at the Palace, I'm listening to Detroit Sports Podcast. Log in, listen in, have some fun with us. Love this group. Love the station.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
All right, cuz, I'm ready. I'm sitting here. The king of the couch is ready to deliver. I'm interested to hear what has been on your mind in the sports world.
You know what my favorite part about this whole segment is? You come to the couch, you actually have a crown, and you have a scepter, and you have a large fur felt cape on. Where do you even get this stuff?
Pimpin' ain't easy, man. Come on. Pimpin' ain't easy, man.
Who does this? Only you.
You know, you got to come to the table ready to deliver. I'll do what I got to do in order to get in the mindset to tackle the questions that you got for me. So the king is ready, man. Don't keep me waiting. Let's go. What do you got?
You love this segment. All right, your first question. Your thoughts on the players wearing the I Can't Breathe t-shirts and warm-ups before games.
Yeah, lots of athletes, including the Lions' own Reggie Bush, have donned the I Can't Breathe t-shirt, and that's obviously referencing the Eric Garner case out there in New York. Very disturbing case, and I seen on your Facebook that, along with several others, have posted the video of Garner being choked by the police. You know, his last words were, "I can't breathe." And it's just a sad situation where we're at now in terms of, you know, where the relationship between civilians and the police. It's not where it needs to be, and that's where I'm going to leave it at that. It needs to improve. The relationship between the police and civilians can always be improved, and that's the direction it needs to go. But a lot of people say, okay, should athletes who are well-respected, who make a lot of money, should they express themselves in a public fashion? Should people respect their opinions? The first step is this. I always want my athletes to be fully focused on the game and ready to go. They need to be 100% down with the cause of winning games and doing what they got to do for their teams. So it really depends on the issue. Like, I'm not sure exactly. The question I guess I have for myself is, what issues should they really speak about? Let's just go to this case. This case deserves a lot of talk and discussion. And so I have no problem with LeBron. I have no problem with Reggie Bush donning those shirts because it brings about more discussion. It keeps the conversation going. A lot of people will say, should we give these athletes the platform? Whether or not you agree, should they have the platform? They have it. People listen. So when LeBron speaks, whether you agree or not that this guy should be the guy that should be the voice of the people, he is. So you have to recognize that this guy has a strong influence. People look to LeBron for some commentary regarding these issues. And that's why a lot of people were kind of questioning Michael Jordan, because he would refuse to do that. He was corporate. He really wouldn't stand up a whole hell of a lot in regards to these kind of matters. He was really conscious of what people thought about him. For LeBron James and for Reggie Bush and for the other athletes that are making a stand, I give them all the credit, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there and be willing to put yourself out there to be criticized by the people. Because a lot of people do believe, I understand people's opinions that, hey, these guys are athletes. We really don't want to get strong opinions regarding life issues from athletes. But unfortunately, if you think that way, then you're really putting your head in the sand and not recognizing the impact that these guys have, because millions of people do watch them. They need to speak up when the issue is so profound like this issue is. And so I give them all credit, all kudos from me for them doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% here. And I think that's where a lot of this animosity and a lot of this conversation really should be moving towards that direction, improving race relations, not just between the police and citizens, but just in people in general. We're all part of the same race. We're all part of the human race. So I think we should all take a step back and maybe look at it that way, not look at black, white, red, yellow, not basically categorize everybody. Moving on, how does your Heisman vote shake out, and who are your top three?
Heisman, it's that time of year. Just based on my research and based on what we've watched all season, it's a three-man race, and it's pretty obvious that it's going to come down to the top three vote getters will be Marcus Mariota, Amari Cooper from Alabama, and Marvin Gordon from Wisconsin. Mariota from Oregon is the hands-down favorite to take it down. I mean, his numbers are outstanding. Michigan State fans got to witness his unbelievable play firsthand in the Spartans' defeat by Oregon. This year, 53 combined touchdowns, 38 passing touchdowns, 14 rushing touchdowns, and 1 receiving, 3,700 yards passing, 38 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. Dude is on fire, and he's likely going to be the guy that's carrying that Sears Trophy at the end of this year when Oregon wins the national title. Then you got a race for second and third. I think that Melvin Gordon has done enough to get the second place vote. He really did, though, crap the bed versus Ohio State, and it just goes to show you.
That entire team crapped the bed against Ohio State.
It goes to show you, if you get recognized in Sports Illustrated, there is a chance the Sports Illustrated curse lives for real. Dude, going into that game versus Ohio State, he had a streak of 10 games of rushing for 122 yards or more, and that was broken versus Ohio State. But dude's balling. Over 2,300 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 151 yards receiving with 3 touchdowns. And dude had a streak there where Melvin Gordon broke the streak for the most yards in a single game, only to have it broken the next week. That streak hadn't been broken in so long. Melvin Gordon broke the streak, and then the next week, another running back breaks it? Unbelievable. But he did a lot to get his name out there this season, and he broke out. Yeah, Melvin Gordon, in my opinion, should be the second place winner, and that leaves Amari Cooper to finish third. He is hands down, bar none, the best wide receiver in college football right now. 115 catches, 1,656 yards, 14 touchdowns, 7 games over 100 yards receiving, and 2 games this year over 200 yards receiving. So Amari Cooper is the man. He's the man at wide receiver. That game, Alabama versus Ohio State, has the potential to be a classic. So, I think in my thoughts, I'm liking Ohio State to win, going up against Oregon in the final, with Oregon taking it down. But I do think that the factor is this: time. Urban Meyer has some time to prepare for Nick Saban, and with that extra time, I think they got a chance. So this season all around has been exciting for college football. In the end, the gentleman that's going to be receiving the Heisman Trophy, Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota. Bank it for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, unless something outrageous happens and some character flaw comes out in the next 3 days, Mariota wins it hands down with the most votes in a landslide.
Yeah, I think Mariota wins it as well. The guy's been a stud all season. He's far and away the best player in college football right now. Expect him to be the number 1 overall pick going into next year's draft. Melvin Gordon, if he's there for the Lions, and this is that move-up scenario we were talking about earlier, would you move up and grab him? Do you think he is a difference maker?
The more we think about it, I don't think the Lions, right now when you talk about need, will do that. I think they're satisfied with the way Joique Bell and Wynn and Theo Riddick have played, and so I don't think they're willing just yet to put additional resources into the running back position. I don't think that's where it is. I would do it. I would move up and get a better, I would look to upgrade that position, but that's just trying to set up a Madden team, an all-star team. You can't have a Pro Bowl at every position. So if you look at it objectively, that's the position you can be okay at leaving that alone.
All right, moving on to your third and final question. Do you think an NHL franchise will succeed in Las Vegas?
Okay, so there's talk, I haven't heard this yet, there's talk of an NHL franchise in Las Vegas.
Yes, what they're doing right now is they are doing basically it's like a cold ticket call, basically trying to gauge interest on whether or not they could put a stadium in there and basically get it filled to capacity enough to where the franchise would be serviceable and marketable.
So my answer is going to be this. Here's my thoughts. I think a professional team would succeed in Las Vegas because the entertainment dollar is so strong. There's lots of room for entertainment. People, the tourist money there is outstanding. So there's always a need for some entertainment, and definitely sports fills that. But I don't think an NHL team would be successful in Las Vegas. I don't think that the NHL is a strong enough draw out west to consistently fill and support a team. NBA, NFL, a baseball team, okay, I can understand it. An NHL team, that can be a stretch. And for those of you who say, well, why aren't there more teams out there in Las Vegas? The biggest factor is gambling. There have been more and more, and as each year passes, you're going to hear more about it. Lots of guys have tanked for money because gambling is so outrageous. And the numbers are outstanding. A lot of people love Floyd Mayweather's Twitter because he'll put up his tickets, his gambling wins, and how much he's spending. But the room for corruption in a professional sport out there in Vegas, the risk is so high. And so that's why they're always leery of putting a team out there. I just don't think, though, that the NHL, I don't think it's in the NHL's best interest to put a team out there in Las Vegas because it's going to take a while for them to succeed. And second of all, the alternative options out there are so much. The shows, the clubs, the parties. It's just really challenging, I think, to consistently have 17 to 18,000 people show up for a hockey game out there in Vegas.
Do you think that by putting an NHL team in Las Vegas, do you think that helps strengthen or weaken the NHL?
I think it helps weaken it. I think then that you're spreading the talent too thin. You're adding 30 more jobs. I honestly think right now the NHL should look to contract. I think there are some teams that really have no chance of winning.
Florida Panthers?
Yeah, exactly. You've seen the pictures? There's a couple pictures that made the rounds on Twitter where it looked like there was less than maybe 4,000 people.
They got like 700 fans, dude. It's brutal.
It's bad, and they haven't won. Any team that
franchise
wins
should be moved. If anything, just dissolved.
Exactly. And what's a team doing in Columbus? I mean,
there needs to be a team in Quebec. There could possibly be a team in Seattle. But at this point, there's no more expansion. You need to contract. It needs to get smaller, and no more with this 16 and 14 team conferences. That's retarded.
Cause I swear to God, I've been in a hockey fix lately, and I just finally seen the ESPN 30 for 30 back in the day. I didn't realize the impact, but how big a story maybe it was, but I missed it. The NHL sold a team to a guy who had no money.
Oh yeah, that was a great one. That was the one with the Islanders. Yeah, that was really good.
I was glued to it. Like, this guy really is a genius. He literally tried to finagle this, and he had control of the team. He was the owner, and the NHL had egg all over itself. I don't know if it was, because I was younger back in the day, but that story is outrageous. A man had control of the Islanders who bought the team and didn't have any money. What a story. If you haven't seen it, if you're a Netflix fan, go see the Islanders 30 for 30. Must see. A guy bought a team, an NHL franchise, under Gary Bettman, who didn't have any money. And unbelievable. I was in shock. I was floored, and I was glued to it. This is like at 3 a.m. I was glued to it. And it was a great story, and that's why a lot of people look funny when they think about Gary Bettman and his leadership. Yeah, he's not a great leader in my opinion, but hey, what are you going to do? But no to the NHL in Las Vegas.
All right, King of the Couch. You donned your crown, and you heavy's the head that wears that crown. I mean, that's just because you got a ginormous dome. But besides all that, great knowledge, great insight. Well played, sir. Excellent job.
Yes, sir. Always ready to deliver. Stay with us. Justin Rose coming up next from WXYZ Channel 7 here in Detroit, talking Lions and talking college football. Stay with us.
Hey, everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your hand.
I know. On the phone with us right now, we have Justin Rose of Channel 7, The Sports Cave. It airs on Sunday mornings at 10:30 on Channel 7. Justin, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we can't complain. We're doing great. We're excited to have you back on.
Good to be here.
Well, let's get started with our cardiac cats over here. Where do you see the Lions finishing the regular season?
I see it all coming down to that last game on December 28th in Green Bay, Lambeau Field. I think the Lions will take care of business the next 2 weeks against Minnesota and Chicago, and then we'll see really what happens, around the league, and then within the Lions if that game becomes a must-win to get to the playoffs or if they're going to get a wild card bid regardless of what happens. But that's going to be a game that I think people are going to look at, and they're going to really the Lions are going and taking care of business as they are now, as they should be against teams that are of lesser quality, lesser, talent, and the wins and losses speak for themselves. They cannot afford to lose a game to either Minnesota or to Chicago, two teams that they beat pretty handily the first two times. They should be able to do both of that again. But that game against Green Bay is going to tell the story of the season. Is this team just good enough to beat the bad teams, or are they actually a team that can make some noise in the playoffs?
Does this Lions offense have you believing a little bit more that they can go up into Lambeau and come away with a win?
I think so, yes, because of what we've seen the past 2 weeks. I mean, it all starts with Matthew Stafford. He's going to be a guy that people talk about, good, bad, ugly, in between. The guy's had 2 games where he's been over 300 yards passing. He hasn't made any bad decisions. And even when he has his incompletions are good choices. They're balls that are thrown away. He's not forcing anything. And I think that offense is starting to figure it out. Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, is starting to really, look at okay, what's working and what's not working. What can we do? Now, they still have their 3 and outs. They still have their, stub the toe moments with penalties and holdings and different things. And this team is not going to be a team that's going to fix that in a week or two's time. That's just the way. That's what their DNA has been this whole season. So don't expect them to completely 180 it around. But the offense is having me believe that they can score points, at least move the football and keep the defense off the field, because the defense is, this team is a defensive team. Let's not get it twisted here. The Lions are going to win based upon how their defense does. Their offense just needs to be have some sort of relevance to it, and we've seen against big opponents like Arizona and New England that if the offense is just completely defunct, the defense can only do so much.
All right, let's play some Aerosmith, let's play Dream On, and let's just kind of fantasize here for a second. If the Lions do make the playoffs, do you see them getting embarrassed like they did against New Orleans back in 2011? Do they shock the world and do they win, or are they just kind of competitive and it's a competitive loss? How do you see this playing out?
It's got to be, a lot of it has to do with what matchup they get. I mean, if they end up getting a wild card and they're playing the NFC South, so they're playing Carolina or they're playing Atlanta or they're playing New Orleans, they should win that game, because those are teams that are there strictly by how the playoffs is set up. They're not there because they earned their way in. And keep in mind, the Lions could miss the playoffs at 11-5. I mean, if things shake out the way that they do, if they end up not beating Green Bay and Dallas keeps winning their games, they're going to be on the outside looking in, and that would be unfortunate. But I think that it depends on the matchup. If they have to go somewhere really, really tough and play, that might be tough. But if they can somehow get that win in Lambeau, that's why that game is so important, because if they get home field advantage for the first round of the playoffs, that could be a real opportunity for them to make some noise and then have people believe that this team could maybe, eke out a win or two more to get to the Super Bowl.
Now, Justin, a lot of talk. Adam and I spent a couple minutes kind of debating it earlier just before you came on. The running game is an area that has been a little bit inconsistent. A lot of us are impressed with Joique Bell and what he's been able to do in terms of the fact that, he wasn't really one of those guys you consider to be ultra talented, but he is producing. And now there's a debate between whether Theo Riddick should get on the field versus Reggie Bush, just based on Bush's lack of production. Well, Adam and I are interested kind of a little bit in the future. Do you think Joique Bell, standalone, is a feature back, or potentially should the Lions look to upgrade that position going forward in order to get to that next level?
I think they'll look. I don't think that they'll say that they're content with what they have. They're always looking. I mean, they'll say that they're not content with their defensive line right now because they're always looking to upgrade every position, even though that's just by far their strongest position on the field this season. I don't think Reggie Bush will be back with the team next year. I just think that they're kind of moving on from him a little bit. Joique Bell, I don't know if you can make him a feature back, if you will. He has been basically the feature back of the Lions this year, but almost out of necessity, more so than this guy's the guy, as far as the talent. Now, he has produced, and he does get the hard-fought yards. But, again, I feel like the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I look into it, this is a passing league. I mean, yeah, there's running backs out there that are being able to, produce and do things, but a lot of that's out of the backfield, more like as far as catching, like Le'Veon Bell. Take a look at what he's doing. He's 50% of the offense in Pittsburgh. 50% of their total yards from scrimmage are from Le'Veon Bell. Now, that is a one-of-a-kind running back. Now, you look at DeMarco Murray down at Dallas, he's doing his thing too. But other than that, I mean, Marshawn Lynch has his days, but he has his off days as well. It's just more of a passing league, and the Lions are equipped for that. So what they'll probably want to do is Theo Riddick will stick around. They'll keep him, and they'll probably keep Joique as far as somebody who can get those hard yards when needed. But they need they'll look. And, again, wherever they draft and whoever's available, they'll say, hey, this guy can really upgrade us there. They'll take a look at that. But as far as I think they have more pressing needs to upgrade offensive line, defensive back, and the like. That running game will be strictly what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little cherry on the top if they can find some help there.
Right now on the phone with us, host of the Sports Cave and friends with Sidney Crosby, Justin Rose of Channel 7. Justin,
you had to put it in there, didn't you?
Well, come on, I was. Let's transition away from the NFL and let's go to the NCAA and college football. Do you think the NCAA committee got it right with the Final Four and their rankings?
Absolutely. I think the Final Four is exactly where it needs to be. Alabama number 1, of course. Oregon number 2, of course. Florida State. Look, when you go undefeated 2 seasons in a row, you're the defending national champion. I don't care if you win by 2 or you win by 20. You're still undefeated. And it's kind of that whole thing last year. If Ohio State would have beaten Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game and stayed undefeated, should they have jumped up into, one of those other spots? I would have said, yeah, in the old BCS. But Ohio State getting in there, I think, is what it was. I think the politics that came involved with that were really, that was something Jim Delaney was never going to let happen. He was never going to let the Big Ten be left out of the first 4 playoff if a Big Ten team was deserving. And I think it was. I think the Big 12 is they're penalized by not having a true conference champion. 2 teams, if those 2 teams would have played and whoever would have won that game would have been, I think had much more of a case. And Baylor did beat TCU. So, there's your case, but it's not for the conference championship. They were co-conference champions. What I will say is they made a mistake by making it a 14 playoff instead of an 18 playoff. You have 5 power conferences. You knew that you were going to have 5 conference champions, if you will, and you're going to make one of them out every year. That's asinine to me. But then, people say, oh, well, number 9 and number 10 would be sitting here complaining that they wouldn't be included in the playoff. Well, it's a lot less subjective, because then you're talking about 9 and 10. You're talking about teams like a Michigan State, who's 10 and 2, and their 2 losses were to 2 top 4 teams. Okay, should they be involved in the playoff? Probably. Then Baylor's there. They're in the playoff then. So I think that you take away a little bit of that, we deserve to be in because look who we lost to. You're not talking about that. You're talking about who we beat for the top 4. And if you have it in the top 8, you have 5 conference champions, and then you have 3 basically at large. Then you go by resume. Who did you beat, not who did you lose to?
What do you expect from this national championship game? Do you see it being, again, an SEC team running away with it, and that SEC team being Alabama? Or do you maybe see a team like the Oregon Ducks, or do you see maybe Ohio State rising up? I don't think Florida State, me personally, I don't think they really have a shot in it.
No, I don't think so either. I think that Oregon will take care of Florida. That'll be the least competitive game as far as what we think might happen. Who knows what Jameis will do in that game? But I think that, I don't know. I don't want to rule out Ohio State. They've proven that they can do it with this third-string quarterback who's playing, one game or so all world. We'll see if he can do it against Alabama. Totally different story. A buddy of mine was down at the SEC championship game, and he said Alabama was subbing basically as hockey lines. 5 guys for 5 guys. The depth on that team is something else, and I don't think Ohio State quite has that depth to hang with them. But then again, we've seen that they can score quickly, they can put up yards, they can move the ball against a good defense. Michigan State's defense not as good as it has been in recent years, but still being able to move the ball and put up points. It'll be interesting to see how that's definitely the key game, because if Ohio State wins, Ohio State-Oregon matchup would be really entertaining. But if Alabama wins, I think I got to go Roll Tide.
What are your thoughts on the Cotton Bowl basically being the new Big Ten premier bowl game? The Rose Bowl no longer is. At least that's what they're selling to us. And how do you like the way they've kind of restructured these bowl games and making what at one time was irrelevant bowl games now relevant bowl games?
Bowl games, it changes. It changes with, now, if you had asked me 5 years ago if, a 10-2 Michigan State team getting to a New Year's Day game, that would have been the pride of their season. But it's changed now with the playoff. If you're not one of the top 4, your season's relatively a failure. I like that the Cotton Bowl is stepping up and saying, hey, we have one of the best non-playoff matchups. And they really do. Michigan State and Baylor will be a very entertaining game to watch. Don't get me wrong. But I think it takes some of the luster out, because both of these teams are kind of going, man, missed opportunities, and I think that'll show a little bit. They'll want to go out and they'll play hard and try to win it, but I just don't necessarily think that the bowl games. Relatively these days, if it's not one of the playoff games, because of how it is. The BCS. Remember when the BCS bowl games were the cream of the crop? Well, now they went from 4 BCS bowl games and then a national championship game to just basically 2 BCS games and a national championship. So some of the bowls are a little diluted because they're not playing for the same things they were if you weren't in the BCS national championship game.
All right, Justin, have you had a chance to look at how our Spartans match up against Baylor? Part of me is a little bit concerned that Baylor's going to be so upset at being left out that they're going to want to show the nation that, hey, you left out a strong team, and unfortunately our Spartans might be the brunt of a beatdown. But I do think that Michigan State, obviously with Mark D'Antonio, you always give them a chance, especially with Pat Narduzzi. Have you had a chance to look at it, and how do you see Michigan State going up against number 5 Baylor?
I've looked at it a little bit. I haven't looked at it too in depth yet. I'm sure I'll get there over the next couple weeks leading up to the bowl game. But I think, look, you said all the things you need to say about Baylor being upset. But Michigan State has the same thing too. You look at them. They lost to 2 of the top 4 teams. They're not a bad team. They've beaten every a Big Ten opponent except for Nebraska by double digits. Once again, second year in a row they've done that. They have something to prove too, and Michigan State will play with a chip on their shoulder. They'll go out there and they'll say, this is a chance for us to prove that we are taking that elite step, because they fanned on 2 opportunities to do that during the regular season, going to Oregon and hosting Ohio State and losing that game, which basically, if they would have won that game, they probably would be where Ohio State is right now. Let's be frank. So they'll have an opportunity to go out there. But Baylor, obviously they can throw the football, they can run the football. It reminds me a lot of that Ohio State game. If they play the way they did against Ohio State, Baylor will win the game. They can't give up big plays. They can't give up long touchdown passes. They can't give up long runs. But Michigan State offense, you look at that Ohio State game again, they were able to put up points. And anytime, Narduzzi said it best, anytime you put up 37 points, you should win the game. And the defense let them down that day. So I look for a big bounce back. The key for the game for me will be Michigan State's defense against Baylor's offense. Because I do think that Baylor's defense, and the Big 12 in general, defensively, it's who can score more. First to 60 wins. A lot of their games have been that way.
All right, Justin, what are you hearing about Michigan's next head coach, and how do you kind of see this playing out?
Oh, well, who haven't you heard? I guess your name should be put in the hat for who's going to be coach there next. Right now it's still a lot of speculation. Jim Hackett has come out and said that he's received a lot of interest from people around. Of course, he's not going to divulge any of the names. And then the whole Harbaugh drama, him saying he's only focused on the job that he has. That's what he has to say. That's what everybody has to say. This is going to be a private search, and all of the conversations are going to be relatively private. You might hear things where planes are landing or who's going where or where your trip is. You can't really pencil anybody in for that yet, and it could be a wild card candidate. It could be somebody that you didn't really think of. The more I think about it, the more I really like David Shaw from Stanford. I mean, he's wanted a high academic institution, and that's what Michigan wants to be. They want to have those kind of caliber athletes come and play there. But at the same time, that's his alma mater. He might not want to leave that. But, maybe things are a little bit stale for him there as far as going to the Rose Bowl last year, getting beat, and then having a 7-5 year this year. Who knows what'll happen? You take a look at like TCU. Can Gary Patterson look at himself, go, how did we not get into the playoff? We've been the number 3 team in the country for almost the whole time those rankings were out, and then we dropped to 6th on the final week. Maybe he thinks he's hit his ceiling at TCU. Maybe he can't get over the hump there because the name recognition for TCU isn't what it's going to be if he comes and coaches at Michigan. Those are 2 guys that, just are really intriguing. If they were to be offered, would they maybe take it? Of course, I have no idea, but they're definitely intriguing options as far as Michigan looks. But again, nobody knows anything yet except for the people behind closed doors, and that will continue until mostly football is going to be over. They have to do it that way. They can't. No one's going to take a job, right now. Especially some of those names. Maybe Shaw would if he were inclined to go now, just to get here and get started. But I mean, you can bet that Gary Patterson's not going to leave a 6th-ranked TCU team unless he says, you know what, forget it, I'm out of here. But I just don't see anything happening with that until after the new year.
All right, Justin, we want to thank you. We know you're busy. We want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to come on and talk with us. Everybody, you can check out Justin Rose on Channel 7. Also, check out the Sports Cave airing on Sunday mornings.
Thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
Thanks to Justin again. Great insight. He's a big college football fan, and he's a great on the Sports Cave every Sunday, 10:30, talking college sports. All right, cuz it's that time of the week. I have to toot my horn. I got 4 right last week. I extended my lead by 1 because I was able to get the Lions correct. Thank you, Lions offense. By covering, they won by more than 10. So at this point in time, I think I'm winning 39-35.
That game was a 4-point swing. That game right now would be the difference between you and I being tied up right now. Do you realize that? I'm so upset. Yeah. Brutal.
But here in the NFL Pick'em Challenge, Adam and I pick 3 games versus the spread every week, and then we pick the Lions game for a bonus point for 2 points. And as we speak, I am winning 39-35, and I'm getting closer every week to taking this down, baby. You getting worried?
I'm getting there. I'm getting nervous.
Well, looking at the slate this week, oh man, the games are tough.
There's some tough games this week.
There's some very tough games, but I think my strategy will be to play it safe, conservative as can be, and that's the way to do it when you're up by 4. So with my first pick, lock it down. Pittsburgh will go destroy Atlanta. I think teams that play after Monday night aren't that successful because of the shortened work week, less time to prepare, and Atlanta cannot, even if they had an extra week, probably couldn't prepare for Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh is going on the road. I don't think they're going to lay an egg. I think the combination of Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown got enough. So my first pick, Pittsburgh crushing the Atlanta Falcons.
Steelers play better on the road. It's weird. They do. The Falcons, let's be honest, they suck this year. I got the Steelers rolling over Atlanta. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Big Ben, murdering Falcons.
All right, cuz. It has happened. Johnny Manziel making his debut. He has surpassed Brian Hoyer. Not really because Brian Hoyer did a bad job, just inconsistent. I really feel bad for a guy like Brian Hoyer. Worked hard, tried to get this team to win. Got him to 7 wins. The Cleveland Browns. They should be ecstatic. Are they? No. They put him to the side. Johnny Manziel's coming in, and I think there's a strong momentum. And they're at home in his debut. I think they picked the right time. So my second pick, I got the Browns getting 1 point over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Staying with that same game, I'm going opposite of you, and I've got the Bengals laying a digit over Johnny Manziel and the Browns. Johnny Manziel is unproven. He played, 10 snaps, 15 snaps, 25 snaps all season long. He had some preseason momentum going, lost his job to Hoyer going into the year. Hoyer's basically maintained it all year up until this point with the inconsistent play, like you pointed out. He's now lost it and relinquished it over to Manziel. Manziel, I just hit him a couple times, honestly. You just got to pop him in the mouth. I think Ray Maluga is going to go and he's going to feast. So I got the Bengals laying a digit over the Browns.
Now looking at some games with some large spreads, I do like Oakland going on the road plus 10.5 at Kansas City. I think that Kansas City should win, but Oakland's going to have some momentum coming off of that game versus San Francisco. Carr is getting better week after week, and I think that I don't think that Kansas City, in terms of their offense, will cover. So with my third pick, I got the Oakland Raiders plus 10.5 at Kansas City.
All right, with my third pick, I'm going to Monday Night Football. Drew Brees, and Jimmy Graham haven't really done anything for me lately fantasy-wise, but they're laying 3, and they're playing against Captain Diabetes himself, Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler doesn't impress me. He's my quarterback on my fantasy team too. So I got the Saints rolling into Chicago, playing Captain Diabetes himself. Plus the Saints are way better on the road. They can't seem to win at home, but they can put up scores on the road. I got the Saints laying 3 over the friggin' Diabetes man himself, Jay Cutler and those Bears.
All right, this is going to be a tough game to pick. The Lions opening up as an 8-point favorite over the Vikings. I hate to say that the Lions can win by more than 8. I think it's going to be close. I respect Zimmer's offense, and Teddy Bridgewater is doing a better job. So I think I'm just going to take the points here, try to be safe. I'm going to take the Vikings plus 8 in this situation. I think that the game is going to be within a touchdown the whole way. I think Minnesota is going to want some respect, try to get to 500, and Zimmer has the respect of the league. So I got to take Minnesota plus 8.
Well, this really sucks for me because I had Minnesota plus 8 on my sheet. You kind of get to see what I was talking about earlier this year when the draft was rolling around about how Teddy Bridgewater could be a difference maker. He looks like a very good quarterback. He looks comfortable in his role currently. He's continuing to develop every week. Every time Detroit and Minnesota play, it's always a close game. And even when Teddy Bridgewater got in there for his first little bit of action, it was a close game versus Detroit. I know he got knocked around a lot that game. I still think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be within a touchdown, and I'm going to take Minnesota plus the 8.
Yeah, it's a smart move. I think it's like I said, the Lions' offense is going to play well. I think the Lions should win the game close, but you never know. Like I said, everyone's a little bit worried that which game is it going to be where the Lions slip up. Minnesota, Chicago. I don't know. The Lions are a different team. I fully expect them to win, so we shall see. Cuz good choice, though. I really think, you shouldn't have changed it. Minnesota plus 8 is the smart pick. Another great podcast, cuz everything's working out good. Episode 70 is in the can. Thank you to everyone that supports this podcast. I want to thank everyone who downloads it on our home site, Podomatic, at Stitcher, at our friends at the Detroit Sports Nation. Support those that support us. So definitely check out Those Detroit Guys podcast. Check out DetroitSportsNation.com. Great articles on that website. Check out their Facebook page and their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. Thank you for those who are supporting us monthly via the contributions. And thank you to those who click on the banner links at our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Thank you very much. We can't do this without your support, and we greatly appreciate it. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been another episode of the Detroit Sports Podcast.
Forward down the field, a team that will not yield. Go Lions!
Making magic, magic on the mics. DocNJock, much to everyone's delight.
Pimpin' ain't easy, man. Come on. Pimpin' ain't easy, man.
Cuz, here's to you, buddy. Coors Light, just for you.
Oh,
Cheers.
Thanks.